Rad.
When I ask you what your favorite post-apocalyptic game is, what's your answer? The vast majority of people would easily say Fallout 3 without any second thought, but to me, the answer to that question will always be Lisa. In September of 2012, Austin Jorgensen, also known as Dingaling, released a game titled Lisa, which was made in RPG Maker 2003. Now known as Lisa the First, it was an open-world exploration game that told a very vague story. It follows a young girl, Lisa, whose abusive father, Marty, doesn't let leave the house. She decides to run away, bringing her to a surreal world that the player must navigate in order to find various items. Sound familiar? It's a lot like Yume Nikki. There's even a room that's pretty much the nexus that you'll access all the different worlds from. Lisa the First is a much smaller game though, being a lot less open, less confusing, and much shorter. It takes just under an hour to finish the game, and even less if you know what to do. Throughout the game world, you can find a lot of things that symbolize the relationship between Lisa and Marty. There's even a number of things that imply that Lisa was raped by Marty. Again, it's a lot like Yume Nikki. Given the small size of the game, there's not really that much to talk about outside of the theory aspect, which has created a lot of discussion over on Uboa-chan. About a year later, Dingaling launched a Kickstarter campaign for a game titled Lisa, the Painful RPG. It promised to be a post-apocalyptic adventure full of weirdos, perverts, and just plain dumb people. It would be a world plagued by drugs, violence, and the decay of human intelligence. I was watching an interview with Dingaling, and he said that he just originally wanted to create a big world full of nothing but ripped dudes that fought each other, kinda like Fist of the North Star. But then he started to think, what would a world full of only men with no women really be like? What would the men actually resort to in order to cope with that? After the Kickstarter going very successfully, Lisa the Painful RPG entered development and saw release via Steam on December 15th of 2014. The game released simply as Lisa for $10. Like Lisa the First, Lisa the Painful RPG was also made in RPG Maker. But a more recent version of it, obviously, more recent than 2003. Funny thing is, if you go on Dingaling's Steam profile, you can see that he has over 6,000 hours logged into RPG Maker. That's nuts. I know that typically when people make a game in RPG Maker, they often just put it out for free, though it's not uncommon for games made in RPG Maker to be put up for sale, some of which even met with critical acclaim, titles such as Lone Survivor and To the Moon. But Lisa sticks out from that kind of crowd. It's just so much different than any other RPG Maker title on Steam. Different how, though? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Why don't we take a look? The first thing you see when you start up the game is a picture of Lisa hanging herself with your three options there. New game, continue, and quit. Right off the bat, we know that Lisa is dead, more notably by suicide. This is important. It's here that we're treated to Lisa's droning, depressing theme song for the very first time. Unless you've played Lisa the First, that is, then you would have heard it before. Except here in this game, it presents itself very quietly, being barely audible. It makes the song a lot more unsettling because you only barely hear it in the background. Lisa opens up with a young boy named Brad and his friends being beaten to a pulp by a couple of bullies. His friends apologize and sympathize for him before he limps off to his house. For a short time, we get to take control of Brad. After navigating a fairly normal-looking suburban neighborhood, you'll stumble across a disgusting, beat-up, wretched-looking house. This house is Brad's house. Upon entry, Brad encounters Marty Armstrong, Brad and Lisa's terrible, awful human filth of a father. Showing zero interest in making Brad feel better at all, he both verbally and physically assaults him before sending him up to his room. If you enter the door on the far right, you can find a crib with a baby inside. This is presumably Lisa, as Brad is Lisa's older brother. Once in his room, Brad cries to himself as the game's logo fades in. Already this game has left a pretty big impression on me, to be quite honest. I can tell that this is going to be a bumpy ride. Fast forward decades later, we're now in a post-apocalyptic world completely empty of women and a way for the human race to reproduce. Currency now takes on the form of pornographic magazines, as that's the only way men can now stimulate themselves. It's a world where friends are scarce and enemies are plenty. While taking a stroll, Bradley stumbles upon a baby abandoned in a wasteland. After bringing the child to his friends, Rick, Sticky, and Cheeks, they inspect the child to learn that it is indeed a girl. Brad's friends suggest that they give the child to Rando, the big-shot military leader of this world, each for different reasons. Cheeks thinks that Rando would reward them, while Rick explains that Rando's army would make sure she's used to give humanity a second chance. Brad immediately shoots down the ideas because he doesn't care about humanity having a second chance, but rather him getting a second chance. A second chance at what, raising a kid? We're never told outright, but it is pretty safe to assume he feels responsible for Lisa's suicide, so he feels he'd be able to redeem himself in raising this child himself. His friends agree to help him take care of the baby girl that Brad decides to name Buddy. As years pass, Brad struggles with an addiction to joy, a drug that makes you feel nothing. He suffers from traumatic flashbacks and memories of Marty and Lisa, and the only thing that can help him forget is joy. Another decade passes, Buddy has grown older, and Brad has lost his head of hair. It's not long before Brad meets up with Terry Hintz, the tutorial master. After joining up with you both head back to find a dying Cheeks who tells Brad that Buddy has been kidnapped. Secret's out, Brad. She's gone. It's now that we finally start the backstabbing, heart-wrenching adventure that is Lisa, the Painful RPG. This game's opening is a home run. If your head was the ball. It scores enough points to win the game, but at the cost of beating you senseless. I'm gonna tell you first and foremost, Lisa's a game that's going to beat the ever-living shit out of your emotions. The game's intro sequence is pretty long-winded, but it's good. Really good. Lisa controls much differently than your typical RPG Maker game. It's on a 2D plane like a side-scroller. Brad's able to jump up and down ledges given they're only one tile high. You're also able to drop off of ledges, though dropping down more than 3 tiles will make you take fall damage. It's a really interesting way to have the overworld set up, and it makes exploring fun without being confusing enough to make you get lost. Honestly, I find this map a lot easier to navigate than most top-down maps, like what you would normally find in a typical RPG Maker game. Having a wider focus on X-axis with a briefer emphasis on Y makes for a more accessible overworld that doesn't fail to still have a lot to explore. There's 3 areas in the game, each being a small region that has many doors that'll lead to different sub-areas. You'll explore each area looking for bosses to fight, items to collect, and means of advancing the plot so you can journey to the next area. It's a really nice structure for the game because it delivers the world's openness in 3 big scoops. This way you have lots to explore right away, but not an overwhelming amount. For an RPG Maker game, the battle system is pretty interesting. Brad's got 4 options: Armstrong style, skills, guard, and items. Armstrong style is your regular attack and will allow you to use the WASD keys to enter up to a 5-hit combo. Each key does a different kind of attack. Brad can also do special attacks that'll do increased damage at the cost of your SP. You can string together Armstrong style attacks into special attacks by entering certain combos. You can do additional damage this way if you take the time to remember each combo and use them frequently. Even if you don't remember them, the button combo is always written beside the special move, so you can check it in the middle of battle whenever you want. It works like this: if you enter a combo instead of just selecting a special attack, he'll do the punches from entering the combo, then do the special, instead of only doing the special. I played this game with a DualShock 4 controller, so I assigned the WASD keys to the 4 shoulder buttons, and let me tell ya, there's nothing more satisfying than mashing those buttons at high speed and watching Brad unleash a fireball amongst all his enemies. Some characters also have TP instead of SP, which is a meter that'll build upon doing and taking damage, which will allow for bigger and better special attacks depending on how much you have it charged up. Every character in the game has a completely unique kind of attack. My favorite is Garth, who delivers buffs and debuffs by showing the enemies or your party members pornography. Another party member throws legal documents at the enemies to confuse them, but also gives them paper cuts. That's just really funny to me. This game has a lot of humor in it, most of which comes from attack and item descriptions. It's a lot like Earthbound, which has the exact same thing with its item descriptions. The Earthbound inspiration overall is fairly obvious. Visuals look pretty similar with its simplistic yet appealing visual design. Dingling even mentions in the description of his Kickstarter that Earthbound is one of his most favorite games of all time. It's far from an Earthbound clone, however, because it only borrows from the aesthetic value rather than on a mechanic level. For example, in Earthbound, you can only get up to 3 party members to join you. In Lisa, you're able to recruit a lot of party members. And I mean a lot. There are 30 total members you can recruit. That's quite a bit more than your average RPG game. Not many of these guys you can just find through normal play though, you'll have to explore and do a number of side quests to find them. Some of which you can just find in bars and can simply pay them a number of magazines to join your party. Others you'll have to do a quest or two involving getting a certain item or winning a certain contest. Two of the arguably better party members, Buckets and Fly, requires you to do some pretty out-of-the-way side quest. But boy is it worth it when you realize that Fly's normal attack does heavy damage to all enemies on screen. Thing is though, party members are really expendable in this game. They can die. And I mean die, as in, they're not gonna come back. I'm not talking permadeath or anything, because when a character falls, you can just revive them. It's just that there are many ways for your party members to die, whether it's losing a game of Russian roulette, being mutilated to death by a mutant being, or by your own hand. It's also not uncommon for a party member to abandon your group or get kidnapped overnight. In Lisa, you're never safe, especially when resting for the night. A number of shitty things can happen to you. This is a post-apocalyptic world where everyone wants to screw you over after all. Sometimes bugs will poison your party or thieves will steal some of your items. If you're lucky enough, nothing will happen. If you're really lucky though, sometimes people might even leave you a gift, though the gift isn't always as generous as you might think. Sometimes a party member will get kidnapped by a nearby gang, requiring you to track them down and pay out the ass to get them back. You can also try killing them, but in doing this, they'll execute your partner before the battle begins. If the party member that got kidnapped wasn't very good, sometimes it's actually worth it just for the EXP of the battle. You need all the EXP you can get in this game because bosses near the end of each area are hard as hell. You'll have to scour the world for some strong party members, items, and people to fight in order to level up. This is one of Lisa's strongest features. There is no grinding whatsoever in this game. A lot of RPGs artificially lengthen themselves by requiring you to fight enemies over and over again just to level up so you'll stand a chance against a boss. But in Lisa, the only enemies that you're able to have random encounters with, which is only about 4 areas of the whole game, you're not rewarded with enough EXP to really level up from them. Instead, the best way to level up is by exploring the world and finding side bosses and monsters to fight. These guys will give you a lot of EXP, enough to easily level up your party. This is the perfect way to structure an RPG, giving you more for doing less that's fun, instead of giving you less for doing more that's boring. Wait, hold on, slow down. So let me get this straight. You waste less time, but you have more fun. Why don't more RPGs do that? One of my favorite side quests involves entering a wrestling league where you'll fight many people in the ring. For those that are fans of Mega 64, Eric and Brian are in the game as a boss in the side quest. They even have their own theme song and everything, it's sick. Lisa is loaded with references to wrestling, and that's something I always welcome with open arms in video games. Pretty early on, you'll get equipped with a bicycle that'll not only increase Brad's movement speed, but will also allow you to hop over small gaps. The game teaches you this instantly. This is a great example of tutorials teaching you through gameplay rather than explanation. You see this gap right here? Immediately after moving to the right just to go back, you'll jump over this gap automatically. You now know that the bike can jump gaps without the game having to stop and explain it to you. That's some damn good game design right there. This suddenly opens up a world of possibilities of exploration, suddenly giving you access to so many areas you didn't have before. Not only that, but backtracking to those areas takes so much less time now. Backtracking is also made very minimal in this game, as the landscapes are designed to make traveling back from much faster than they are to travel to. But if that wasn't enough, about a third way through the game you get an item that lets you fast travel between the 3 areas. On that note, I found a cool glitch that allows Brad to walk just as fast as he can bike, but also climb ropes twice as fast. Dismount the bike on the same frame you get to the top of the rope. It's really just as easy as that. It's a totally harmless glitch that's actually pretty helpful for navigating the world a bit faster. Come to think of it, it's a lot like Yume Niki's speed glitch, so I'm fairly certain it's a fault of RPG Maker. One thing Lisa does really well is choices. A lot of games have the illusion of choice. It makes you think your actions are going to change a lot in the story, but really, the result is often the same. The choices in Lisa journey the road not taken, inflicting the gameplay and difficulty rather than the story. It's not like, oh, do you want me to kill the kid or do you want me to kill the old man? Instead, it's more like, hey fucker, I'm gonna kill your party members, or I'll chop off your arms so you can't use combos anymore. These choices are legitimately hard to make, and that's because it's not changing something you're just gonna watch. It's changing something you're going to play. I remember Dingaling talking about sacrifice on his Kickstarter. He stated, "I want the world of Lisa to be hard on the player. I hate playing a game knowing that if I make a choice, it has to be the one I know the game wants me to do, or the safe option, or the one that just leads to the good ending. The choices you make will change the core mechanics of the game. It's not just superficial. I want the player to really have to make sacrifices and for the game to affect the interior core of your experience." That sounds like a pretty big promise, the kind that game devs tend to break. But don't worry, because I can assure you with all integrity that he really delivered in this aspect. The choices in Lisa don't really impact the story much, save for maybe one or two changes of some dialogue. Though there's more to the decision making in this game than just selecting dialogue options. As mentioned before, Brad has become addicted to a drug called joy. Joy is also an in-game item that you can use. Doing so will max out Brad's health and will make him do some serious damage for a number of turns. This can really help during some of the boss battles. It comes at a price, however, and that price is withdrawal. Sometimes, if Brad hasn't taken joy in a long time, he'll start to suffer withdrawal. This will make him do no damage with his combo attacks and significantly less damage with his special attacks. The more you use joy, the more you'll suffer withdrawal. So is it really worth it? Well, that's up to you. Some party members will also suffer withdrawal. Some of the really good ones will have this, so again, is it worth it to have this badass on your side if sometimes he'll start suffering withdrawal and just be completely useless for a couple of fights? Again, the choice is all yours. Lisa's a pretty challenging game, but if that's not enough for you, on January 2nd, 2015, Dingaling added a pain difficulty. In this mode, you can only use each save point once. There's also some extra bosses along with older bosses being replaced with much harder ones. Completing pain mode also yields a secret ending, which was super cool to see. It links some extra story bits that were a tad unclear altogether. Lisa's got one of those stories where not everything is just outright told to you, though you are given all of the pieces to the puzzle. It's just up to you to put them together. It's also extremely upsetting. It'll kick in your teeth and piss in your mouth, leaving a taste that's unpleasant, yet strangely addicting. There are moments of this game that actually force you to do things you just really do not want to do. Man, I don't even want to touch up on the story. It's just so good that I want anyone who plays it to experience it all completely for themselves. Lisa is the first game on Steam I found myself getting all of the achievements in. Never before have I liked a Steam game enough to want to try and see everything in it. Lisa has a fantastic presentation sporting both appealing visuals and a kick-ass soundtrack. I heard a rumor that the entire soundtrack was made in the trial of Fruity Loops. I don't know how true that is, but if so, that's pretty impressive. The music has a great level of variety. You got your intense electronica for badass boss fights, your depressing acoustics for sad moments, and chill tracks just for strolling around. Lisa's visuals can be pretty disturbing at times, featuring sprites of characters and monsters with a lot of gross and wrinkly detail. One of my favorite characters in the game is Wally, a psychopathic fast food restaurant employee that's worshipped as a god for delivering food to his village. As you fight him more and more, his mask cracks, revealing that he's not even a person underneath, but instead just a bunch of raw meat. There are a few bits of criticism I would like to point out. Firstly, there's a lot of cliffs right by entrances to some screens, so you can just easily walk off getting yourself a game over if you're not paying attention. This happened to me about 4 times on my 3 playthroughs of this game. Another thing is that the text seems to go outside the text boxes sometimes, cutting off a few of the letters. Then again, Dingaling is constantly updating the game, and he's even patched some of the things my friends and I have shown to him, so I have no doubt that the text thing will get fixed eventually. Lisa was hands down the best indie game I played all of 2014. It's everything I look for in an RPG, and better yet, it's only $10. Lisa will take you probably about 10 to 12 hours to complete. even more if you do the side quests. The game also has mad replay value, while not sporting a New Game Plus, has a lot of variety in the choices you can make and the characters you can use. And of course, instead of just being a typical Nitro Rad episode, this is technically a review, so that means I do have to give this game a score. Lisa gets this game kicks ass so hard, buy it immediately, out of 10. If you like RPGs, it would be a crime not to buy Lisa. There's a reason why it was my #1 game of 2014. Because it's good. Hey guys, thanks for watching and welcome to the end. If you're still in the mood for videos on RPG Maker games, I did 2 more recently on games called The Crooked Man and Mad Father. You can watch those by clicking the links right here. Don't forget to drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and to subscribe if you want to see more Nitro Rad content in the future. If you want to see Nitro Rad updates a little more frequently, I have a Facebook page that you're able to like, and the link to that is down in the description below. I really hope you guys decide to buy Lisa, and if you do, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, because I really love this game. So, thanks for watching, have yourselves a good night, and as always, take care. Over 6,000 hours logged in Steam. He's been on Steam that long, that's nuts. This game's opening is a home, and you have more fun. Why don't more Those are not words. If your head was the ball, it scores enough points to win a home run. That's not how baseball works, James.